What's up, NAIA Report Nation? It's your boy Manny here. Welcome back to the Hoop Report, the NAIA Women's Basketball Podcast, episode number 45. Another coach's interview for you guys. Very excited to have this man on. He has been one of the best in the country when it comes to NAIA women's coaching and winning, and just absolute great success, especially the past 4 or 5 years now. And this is another one of those interviews that have been on my bucket list, so I'm glad we can finally cross it off. Coach David Smalley from Rio Grande. Coach, thank you so much for making the time. Thank you so much. I know, especially with the snow that's going on out there, I really appreciate you for making the time. But thank you so much, and I can't wait to get into this one.
Coach Manny, it's my pleasure to be here, especially to talk about basketball. And I love what you guys are doing. You're giving good coverage to NAIA women's basketball, and that's what it's all about, brother. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Again, there's a lot that I want to get into, a lot that we can get into, and I think we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to start, obviously, with this team, and I want to definitely talk about this team and give them their lights, because there's so many different elements about this team that make it such an interesting thing. Obviously, the main storyline that I had for you all in the preseason, going into the season, even during the season, is the turnover that you all have had from just last year to this year. You know, you had 10 underclassmen this year to 3 upperclassmen, compared to 9 underclassmen last year to 7 upperclassmen. So the ratio definitely has favored into the youth. But how have you been able to navigate that? Obviously, your experience has definitely been a biggest thing, but every time it's a new challenge. So how have you navigated this set of new faces, of new names across the program to be able to help continue the established success that you all have had for the past 5+ years now?
Well, Coach Manny, I'll tell you, it starts with leadership, and it starts with leadership within my program. I think I've got maybe one of the strongest and best coaching staffs in the country, and my coaches, they buy into what we're doing. They take ownership, and that it starts there. And it starts with leadership with our 2 seniors, Marley Grinstead and Marina Garcia Perez. They've set the standard. They've been a part of championship teams for the last 4 or 5 years, and they understand what it takes, and they trust the process. They trust us. They trust what we put them through. They trust the demands that we put on them, and they buy into it from a playing standpoint. And then what's exciting, they're moving that information, that trust, that buy-in to the newcomers. And our returning sophomores, Peyton and Josie, elevated their voices as well. We only have 4 returning players from last year. And, and I'll be honest with you, I thought at the beginning, wow, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be tough to have such a turnover. But it starts with the leadership with our 4 returning players, Peyton and Josie. They've elevated their voices as well. From there, we were very intentional in the recruiting process from that point. Filling gaps with the right people. We added a Division II transfer, Sophia Klein, and we're going to talk more about her a little later on. And freshman guard Allie Ellison were huge for us. Allie picked us over several D2 schools, and she played AAU for my assistant coach, Coach Brandon Bias, who's on my staff. And I think they established a great rapport at that particular point during the AAU process. And when she learned that the AAU team that Coach Bias was coaching with her in it, that we play by the same standards and we play the same style, and she really liked that. And expectations beyond winning became the norm for us here, and also with our administration. We are now having opportunities and resources to do what we're doing. So, Coach, we better win if we're getting all that kind of stuff going on from the administration. But having the players that we lost in the past, and then rebuilding 4 returning players, couple of transfers, and then 7 freshmen. It's been a whirlwind of a ride, and it's been a positive ride. And when it's time to jump that ball up, they're ready to play, Coach.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned there, Peyton, she might be at least sway the ratio now from 10-3 to maybe 9-4. Because again, even though she's a sophomore, when you're so low on that side of things, any type of returning player, no matter what class, is going to help. And she's had a great step in the leadership role, like you mentioned. She's also gone up in terms of minutes, in terms of points. So you've seen the improvement. What has been that improvement like for her intangibles? Well, where has her leadership kind of grown? You mentioned her voice. Has there been other things that have kind of grown, and you've really been just happy to see that you knew that she would be able to do just in her second year?
Well, one of the many things I love about Peyton, first of all, Peyton was recruited from Peebles High School, and back in the 70s when dinosaurs roamed the earth, that's where I went to school. So she's kind of my hometown girl as well. When she was a freshman, she earned every stripe that she got. She ended up starting towards the end of her freshman year. Was all conference as a freshman, and that's hard to do in our conference. But she's earned it. And what's exciting about Peyton's growth, she has taken that experience, and I think it's helped form her and build her into the leader that she is. And Peyton's growth has been intentional, and it's been earned. She has worked hard at it. Averaging about 9 points a game last year as a freshman. Now it's kind of her time to shine, and she's really worked on it. She's one of the best players to get it to the glass. She reminds me of the bowling ball that's going down the alley, and when the bowling ball hits the pins, you know how erratic those pins jump around. That's the way Peyton is. She gets full steam and going to the glass. She is just unbelievable. And then we kind of talked to her about, hey, you need to kind of extend your scoring abilities and work on the 3-point shot as well. So she has done that, and she's had one of the best off seasons in our program. Coming back physically stronger than what she was, mentally sharper than what she was, and more consistent as a shooter. But more than anything, she understands the standard, and she's able to convey that to the newcomers. And that's been a big plus for us coaches. I mean, when you got players that kind of, set the tone in the locker room and in the dorms and in their social life, that goes a long way. She's raised our culture by the winningest senior class of program history, and nothing's been handed to her, like I'd mentioned earlier. She's worked for everything she's got, and she's now driven to protect and carry on that tradition, and she's the real deal.
No, absolutely. And talking about those numbers, like you said, pretty much improvements all across the board, from the scoring total. You said 8.9 last year, 12.3 this year. But like you mentioned, that was the biggest thing that I noticed. The efficiency has really gone up. And it's always a goal of everybody to be more efficient, but you don't see these type of numbers go up the way she did. Last year she shot at 39%, just under 40% from the field. Now that's bumped up to almost 45%. And the three ball was definitely what caught my eyes. You're talking about a player that last year 27.5%, and now flirting with 40%. You're going up almost 10 percentage points per category. That's impressive, while keeping your free throws still at that consistent rate. What was that? I want you to take us into that exit meeting, going into the summer, going into the off season. What was that conversation like? Where was the points that you wanted to make sure she heard? Where were the notes you wanted to make sure she understood going into the summer? Because I know you talking about the development. What was that meeting like that allowed her to set up for a big summer and now a really big second year?
Well, those meetings, and Coach, I'm assuming every coach does that. I don't know, but at the end of every season, we have what we call exit meetings. They're not exiting. That's just it's exiting the season. And then, how did things go with you? How do you feel? How do you give us feedback on your experience and all that? And sometimes there's some tears, and I always keep a box of Kleenexes in my office because even as a coach, sometimes I cry a little bit. And that meeting with Peyton was better than most. And, she wanted more and more and more. And, how did we design, and what do you have to do to get to that point? And basically kind of what you just talked about. Hey, you got to make yourself more marketable. You got to be a three, because if you're just going to be a driver, they're going to play off of you far enough, and they're going to help stop your drive. But if you hit that three, now they come out on you, and then you can blow by. And she's one of those kids. She and her mother got tattoos on their on the insides of their arms, and she drives in, and when she's flexing and she's going in and scoring, we said, get those tattoos up, show those tattoos, be strong. And then when you're out shooting that three, once in a while she'll hit a three and she'll throw the tattoos up. So she's just a great kid. She put the work in. The bottom line is, Coach, and you've been around basketball and you're coaching, you gotta work at your craft. You gotta work at your game. If you think that you're at the top, then that's gonna be your first weakness, and somebody's gonna knock you off. And she just has that mentality, and she put the work in, and she's showing what happens when you do work hard, and that's a great testament there. She had experience that she had as a freshman year playing behind some really, really good players. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years we've accumulated, I don't have numbers in front of me, but like 114 wins and 19 losses in the last 4 solid seasons. And then right now we're 19-1 and looks like we're headed for another great year. But, as a freshman, where she came from a high school where she was everything, and then to come in and not start as a freshman and learn your role and figure it out. And she eventually did end up starting, and that's a tribute to her. But that's a hard pill for anyone to swallow, basically. But we told her that it's her time now, and you need to do and be what you were in high school, but be at the college level, be at the NAIA Division I basketball level. And we're now seeing that she can put that player in for us, and a future player of the year, possibly in our conference. And we've had like 6 or 7 of those in the last 10 or so years. So she's buying into it, and she's producing, and what a wonderful young lady, and what a great leader she has become.
No, absolutely. And the last thing I want to talk about with her before we move on to another player another returner who has really stepped into a bigger role, especially offensively. When you look at Peyton's scoring and the efficiency, do you think that is just as simple, and I say simple very loosely, obviously, but do you think it is just as simple as more reps in the gym, more time on that gun, more times with teammates rebounding, just simple shots, or do you see a little bit more of the experience side of things of, I know where my shots are coming from now, I know what are good shots, I know what are bad shots? Where do you kind of land when you're talking about Peyton and her scoring? Again, efficiency, knowing where the spots are going to be, or is it just, hey, I've been to the gym so much this summer, I'm just comfortable wherever that spot comes up?
Well, Coach Manny, I think both of those things, you hit the nail on the head, as my daddy would say. And then those things that you just talked about, and it's got to come from internal, and it's got to come from, I put the work and the work ethic in, and I put the reps in. But one of the things I think that's really happening with this group, and I think you're going to maybe talk about it a little later on, but it's the chemistry and the internal chemistry. The teammates pick each other up, and the Peyton Johnsons of the world are not going to be perfect every game. I mean, she's had some games where she just, kind of got down on herself, but her teammates keep picking her up. And I think that's one of the earmarks of this program. The things that you just mentioned, that the individual work ethic and knowing where you're supposed to be and all those things, but then how they like being around each other, how the chemistry off the court, in the locker room, in the dorms, and all that stuff makes a huge difference. And I think that helps a player out like Peyton, who sometimes can be her own worst enemy, and she just continues to grow. And I think it's a team effort in that response.
No, absolutely. Now going over to another one of those 4 returners, Marley Grinstead. She has improved. I think she might be one of the biggest improvements in the conference. Like, I'd go as far as to say from that, especially from a number standpoint. Last year, 7 points per game in 20 minutes. She's gone up to now almost 25 minutes per game, but over doubled her scoring now at 15.6 a night. And she's doing it as a true forward, like mid-range, free throw. She really doesn't take anything from the 3 ball because she doesn't need to. She knows where her spots are. She knows where she's comfortable at. Talk to me about her meeting. Talk to me about her summer. What was it about her summer that you have seen has allowed her to be such a consistent offensive source all year up to this point, and I know moving forward as well?
That exit meeting, and we're talking about Marley Grinstead, was real and honest. Marley she came in as a freshman, didn't get a lot of minutes, didn't get probably as many minutes as Peyton has got last year as her freshman year, but she's a she's a daughter of a basketball coach, a good basketball coach. Her dad coached her all through high school, and so her IQ is off the charts. And that's made her into a very, very intelligent player. And we told Marley, nothing was guaranteed, no starting spot, the role, only opportunity, because that's our policy here. If you start at this year right now and you're coming back next year, there's no guarantee that that's going to be your spot. You still have to earn it. You still have to take it, because our goal is to recruit players that are equal to or better than the players that we have. So it's always going to be a kind of a revolving door of whoever's got the ability. We challenged Marley to train harder. We challenged her to sharpen her game just a little bit. We challenged her to step into the leadership role because the best class in our program's history was gone. So she needed to create her own best class. She's a true senior that doesn't have all those other players that graduated last year around her, but she's an integral part of who we were the last 3 years. And now it's time for her to shine. And she took that challenge, I think, positively and personally. And being a coach's kid, she embraced the tough love and she went to work. And she's never come with anything other than energy and effort. And she goes as hard as she can, as long as she can. And what you're seeing now is the result of that commitment, playing with great teams in the past. And she had good skill. Don't take this wrong. She was an integral part of our success the last 3 years. But now it's time for her to shine, and she has taken that to the next level. This is her last hurrah, and she's good enough. She could go overseas and play, but she's a early childhood education major, and she is great in the classroom. And I know she wants to go back and probably coach and teach around her high school, and maybe pick up where her dad left off in coaching. But Marley is just an unbelievable. She's writing her own story. She's wearing that Rio jersey with pride at number 32 and becoming the toughest, most reliable player on our team. And when we need something, we're going to her. She's our go-to young lady. And the last 2 games she had personal bests and scoring individual points in a game, 22 the first time, 24 the second time. And she's a captain. She is one of those players that just, again, kind of like what we talked about with Peyton, understands what it takes to stay at the level that we are. And she's a big reason for that. And that's what championship growth looks like. And you could put Marley Grinstead in that dictionary if you want to see what a championship growth looks like. So I love that kid, and she's just unbelievable.
No, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit, and I mentioned it briefly about the system and about the roles, because I think, and the perfect way to talk about it is another returner that I think has been an underrated part of the success, and not just this year, but the past few years, but I do think this year is kind of catalyzed into that, and that's Marina Garcia Perez. She leads the team right now in assists. She's gone from her first year at 3.8, her second year 4.5, and now jumped to basically 10. I'm giving her the round. She's at 9.8. I'm rounding that up because she's earned that nod. The system you play at, obviously I've seen you guys play live. I've seen the speed. I've seen the up and down aspect of it. Talk to me a little bit about why that is the style of play you like to play at and you want your team to play at, and then talk about how Perez has kind of helped make that possible. You need someone out there like her that can facilitate for everybody. Just talk a little bit about that dynamic of where Marina can really make that system go, but why the system can go when you have the right people in it.
Right. Well, I grew up in the 70s, and it was transition basketball, run and gun and all that stuff. And this was way before the three-point line. The three-point line came in 1985. I graduated in 1978, but as a kid growing up and playing the game, that's all I've ever known. And that's kind of been the trademark. And, people want to see excitement. They want to see people scoring. They want to see the intricate offensive schematics of, screening and moving and making the right pass. And so that's kind of what I brought into coaching here at the University of Rio Grande 34 years ago. And luckily we can go out and recruit those kind of players to keep that going. We just like to play fast, and the kids love to play fast. And I feel like playing at a higher pace gives us room for error and puts pressure on the opponent. in the past, the fast pace was fun, but we struggled defensively. And we've kept the fast pace, and then we've kind of graduated and brought the defensive schematics up a little bit. We love to press. And we want to have 80 plus possessions a game. And if you start looking and charting, and that you just look at the number of shots basically taken, in theory, if you take one shot each possession, then that doesn't always happen. But we want 80 plus possessions, which means the opponent's going to get a few more possessions as well. So meaning our opponents are probably scoring a little higher than what they normally would because we're giving them those opportunities. This year, the difference is that the team actually plays, like I said, we play good defense. And with our pace, we're always looking to give up, 60 points, but everyone's getting extra shots and more opportunities offensively. What's been cool is that at the time this year, we've also shown we can switch it up. We have played a couple of possession-oriented games where didn't want to get in a fast pace with them at a certain types of opponents. And Marion was one of those. And so we have the ability to kind of pull it back and play more of a controlled type of game, or let the horses run and continue to press and go from there. So in past years, in the last 4 years, we've had one or two players that, can knock down 25 to 32 points on any given night. Therefore, we were kind of possibly, we could be stopped if they could hold those couple of good scores down. This year, Coach, let me tell you something. We probably don't have a player of the year candidate on this team because not one player is just blowing your eyes out on the stats with, scoring 30 points a game. On any given game, we may have 4, 5, or 6 players in double figures. And that, to me, I've told my players, I said, wow, if I had to prepare for the University of Rio Grande, I'd drive myself crazy, because who do you stop? If you stop Sophia Klein and Marina Garcia Perez, and there's 2 or 3 others that's going to hit you with that. And Marina Garcia Perez, she's from Lyon, Spain, and I love saying that. She is a great guard. She's leading the country in assists, and she gets us in offenses, and she can dribble around and just, make a dime pass and get the ball to players. So she's kind of she makes us go. She's the engine that makes us go. And now teams are trying to double team her and slow her down. And then she's witty enough to not let that become a problem. And our team knows that if you move, if our bigs know, if you run the floor, you're going to get the ball on a 40-foot pass from her or Allie Ellison. And then on a quarter court setting, they know if you hit the gap, and if you look and get your hands up and want the ball, Marina Garcia Perez is going to get it to you. So it's just a great combination of a lot of positive things. And, Marina makes us go, Coach.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy thing, because obviously I have the stats pulled up next to me here, and to start the season, she was the leading assist person in the first 17 games of your all season. Y'all have won 19 and have played 20. So pretty much she has been the one that can make everything go. And again, we've talked about Marley, we've talked about Peyton and their scoring. And again, Maria can also score as well. But in a system like this, I do believe you need to have at least one guard. And sometimes you're blessed with more than one, but you need to have one like Perez who can just find those players. And again, you want to play fast, but I'm sure you've had plenty of players tell you, Coach, they're not looking for me. Well, we've got one that's going to look for you. Trust me. If anything, she's looking where you're at more than you are. So I'm glad to hear it. It's been fun to watch y'all play. Like you said, depending on the style, depending on the team you're playing, you can adjust it. And I think that's what makes you all a very deadly team. But now we're going to pivot over to the new players, the new faces that have kind of come into the program this year. Obviously, there's a lot. There's a different ways we can go about it. But all I want to know is take me through the recruiting process of this. What was the mindset of you and your staff going into the offseason, understanding you're losing a lot, how you're going to find it, and at the same time, the silver lining or the blessing in disguise of losing players is you're doing it again. You're building another 4 years of great winning, of great success. So talk to me about that mindset going in. And then once you got into the recruiting process, what were the criteria? What were the things that went past just, hey, can you score the ball? Can you play defense? What really did you kind of hunker down on? This is what I want for this incoming class of players for me.
Well, Coach, recruiting, it's not just a part-time thing. You're constantly recruiting. I mean, we're looking at a young lady that maybe in 2030 that we would love to get, that's kind of local. So, we reload. We like to use the term to reload, and we reloaded this year. And I think it all starts with my staff. And I've mentioned, I think I got the best staff in the country. And I'm extremely blessed that, I've got more years behind me than I do in front of me, and to have staff members, coaches, who take ownership in who we are and what we're doing, that's just a blessing for me. I got Coach Brandon Bias, who's been with me for several years. He's the recruiting coordinator. He's been with me for over 12 years, and he's the architect of our roster every single year. That's what he focuses on, and he's multi-talented. He does a lot of things. He can take care of practice organization, and he's a great practice coach and a great game coach, and so he does a great job, and he's also an administrator here at the university. So he's got his hands full as well. And then I've got two players that are now coaching with me. Kaylee Darnell, who's a leader in scored 2,324 points and leads career scoring, and she just graduated last year, so she's here with us now. She's has a nursing degree and works part-time in the hospital and coaches with us. And then Coach Reagan Willingham, who played 5 years for me with the COVID year. She had the extra year. She does my reserve coaching. We have a reserve team as well, and they're very successful. They were 10-3 this year, so I think winning just can is all through our system here. And she was a great player. So having those two that were players and played for me in this program, they know how to work it and those kind of things. And I have a part-time assistant coach, Anthony Gordon, who does skill development, and he is one of the best. Plus, he also coaches our men's reserve team at the same time. So having staff is the biggest thing. And anybody going into coaching, you need to surround yourself with people that do things better than you as the head coach can do, and then step back and get out of their way and let them do their job. And that's extremely important. Then we've added the element of AAU coaching at Coach Bias and Coach Willingham both have some AAU teams, which is perfectly fine and legal and all that good stuff. And we're able to help, go out and get players involvement. And that's a big advantage for us as well. And on top of that, like I mentioned, having Reagan Willingham and Kaylee Darnell on the staff is invaluable because they've been through those trenches. They know exactly. And it's so cool to see them take over a situation and say, hey, that's not the way we're going to do it. That's not the way this program is. That's not the way the old man wants it. And I take old man as a term of endearment, as a positive thing. And to have them to kind of just do that it just gives me goosebumps to even think about it. And then after all this recruiting, Coach Bice, he brings that plan, and hey, these are the ones we're going after. And my job is to, talk to them, get on the phone, get them in for visits. And we take them through a 3 to 4, sometimes 5-hour visit, because we're going to sit down and we're going to talk to the program, the academic program that they want to go into. And our president will spend 5, 10, 15 minutes with every recruit that we bring. I mean, how many colleges and universities can say that your president is that active in your recruiting process? And then we involve the players in the recruiting process as well. So it's just a situation where I think we've just we have, I think, what's considered a NCAA Division I mentality, and we try to recruit that way. We try to run our program that way. We take trips, Puerto Rico, Hawaii. I mean, we want our players to want to be here, and then we want to retain them and keep them here. So that's I know got off on a tangent there, but recruiting is the lifeline of any successful program.
No, absolutely. And there's one player that I would like to mention at first to make sure that she gets some of the light, because Allie Ellison in her freshman year, she has been amazing. Second on the team in points per game. What does it say for her to be such a source in her first year? What have you seen in practice? Were you, and again, obviously you recruit for them for the success and the upside, but did you see it happening so soon? I mean, she's, again, a number 2 scorer on the top 10 team in the country for the past 2-3 months now. So just talk to me a little bit about her playing style, about her as a player, just all those things that have allowed her to hit the ground running pretty much in her first year in the college level.
Well, just about every player we recruit, we have high expectations and we feel they're going to fit in. Now, when does that develop? Is that as a freshman? Is it a sophomore? I've only had one player that's come in as a freshman that started, and that was Miss Kaylee Darnell, who's now coaching for us and has 2,324 career points, the leading scorer in our program history. Now, Allie Ellison, we knew from the beginning, Coach Bias was really, really excited about her. And I was able to go watch her in some AAU games, and just a tremendous young lady. And she is following that regiment that Kaylee Darnell. She has started as a freshman. She's earned it, and she's getting the job done, and she's growing. And there is room for growth, and she is growing. And she is going to be a tremendous player 3 years from now, once she gets through and graduates. I don't want another COVID situation, but it'd be great if something comes along where she can have a fifth year as well. But she is unbelievable. Allie's a perfect example of fit meeting opportunity. She has the fit. She works hard. She put the time in as a high school player and as a summer AAU player, and she's putting the work and the work ethic in here. And like I said, she played AAU for Coach Bias, and I honestly don't think she's here without that relationship. He coaches our style, Coach Bias. That's where you have to get people as a head coach. You need to get people that's going to take ownership, and they're going to take their personality and they're going to go work it hard in the recruiting circles. And yeah, those kids come in probably primarily because of that assistant coach, but then you got to, as a head coach and the coaching system and the university, you got to mold it around into that family. And we do have family, and we take pride in that. Allie's lightning in a bottle. She defends the best guard on the floor every night, and still gives us, as you'd mentioned, offense. And she's one of the things she will do even better. And she can shoot the three, but I think maybe a little bit of confidence. She will continue to improve in shooting the three, kind of like what Peyton did coming back as a sophomore. What people don't always see is the work she puts in when no one else is around. She's a point guard on a West Virginia state championship team. She won a state championship team in our high school. That now that's telling you that she's a winner coming in, and sometimes you kind of got to look at that and put all that in together. She's sitting behind Marina for a year is allowing her to learn, even though she's not behind Marina. We have Allie as a two guard and Marina as a point guard, and let me tell you something. If I had to coach against that, I'm like, wow, how do you counter that? Normally you go, each team has one dynamic guard. We got two. Marina and Allie, and they do a great job. They complement each other. They work well together, and it comes back to that chemistry. Everybody gets along. We got a term called mudita, and it just means you don't care who's getting the credit. You don't care who's getting the accolades. You are happy for them, and you continue to cheer for them, and you want them. You're not going to pout. You're not going to say, well, if I had the minutes, I could do that too. We have mudita, and every one of these players go with that terminology. And that, again, is another reason. The chemistry is another reason why we are doing what we're doing.
No, absolutely. And I do want to give you this time, you let me know, you let the people at home know, who else has really not surprised you, but who else has impressed you in their first time around at wearing that Red Storm jersey? Who else do you want to give a little moment to say, hey, I really appreciate what this player is doing? Maybe not just from a stat perspective, but even from behind the scenes. We know, these are the dog days. We're recording this. This will come out on this Friday, obviously Friday when everybody's watching it, but we're recording this at the beginning of the week. It's middle of January. February's right around the corner. It's the dog days. You got practice, game, practice, game. It's a routine right now, and it can get boring. It can get drawn out. So there's a lot of things that need to happen behind the scenes among the players to be able to get through this. So just talk to me about those players that maybe don't get a lot of love on the stat sheet, but this program and this season would not be going the way it is without them.
Well, this young lady does get a lot of love on the stat sheet, but we haven't talked enough about her. Sophia Klein has been everything we'd hoped for and more. 6'2" rim runner. She's out of the portal, a transfer. And by team vote, she's one of the most loved players in our locker room. She's got a personality that's just unbelievable and keeps everybody kind of loose. But she works hard and performs extremely well. And that all that matters, especially for a transfer. You're coming in and you're like, oh, and you're coming into our situation. We're up in our locker room. We got, for the last 4 years, we got banners of, we've won the conference 3 out of the last 4 years, and won the conference tournament 4 out of the last 4 years. And then we're going hopefully for a 5-peat. And for a transfer, that's sometimes overpowering, but she's done a tremendously good job of making the adjustment. And now we're starting to see the fruits of her labor. I think she's just become even more comfortable with who she is and more comfortable within our system because she's a transfer. So she's had to learn the system. And you never fully know how this fit will always work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Sophia is what we've been missing for years. She's incredibly unselfish, a true rim protector. I don't have the stats in front of me, but she's got to be up there with blocks. I mean, she's
2.
averaging
2.7 for the season.
Thank you. So she's doing that, and she's long and athletic and runs the floor. And I'm telling you that we've had a couple of ESPN highlights where she got a rebound and went coast to coast and, kind of weave through some people and end up putting up a reverse layup. It's just like, wow. And so she's doing a great job for us in that regard. And one of my what we call the sixth woman, however you want to look at that. And she was one of the 4 returnees from last year. Is Josie Graves, post player, and Josie at 6 foot and Sophia at 6'2". They really complement each other, and they're a good 1-2 punch. And then Josie is so unselfish. Josie also played last year, but very limited on a great team, but she stuck with it. And that exit meeting, kind of the same thing. She just wanted to know what does she need to do to get better, and we gave her a prescription, and she did a tremendous job of doing that. She embraces her role to perfection. Being a returnee, maybe I should start. I paid my dues last year. Josie never has any concerns, and when Josie gets the call, she's one of the nation's NAIA percentage wise shooting percentage is just really, really up there. And she knows exactly when it's her time to shine. And having a 6th player who could start for any team in our league, I believe, is a luxury for us to have. And that's what makes this team truly strong. We also have what we call the Splash Sisters. This is Coach Bias's term, Splash Sisters, that they can shoot to 3. And they're freshmen, Alyssa Baker and Kate Ball. And who don't know how special they are at this point. They're freshmen, but they stick with this program. They stick with playing. They're going to be, when they become juniors and seniors, we'll be having these same talks about them, and we give them the freedom to let it fly. They're great teammates, and again, nobody gets all bent out of shape if hey, I'm wide open and you threw a dime pass to a post player that scored, but I was wide open. Why didn't you throw it to me? We don't have any of that kind of stuff going on. So those are some players that, and and I'm sure I probably missed somebody, but those are players that deserve to have some accolades, and we're about 8 or 9 deep, and that's been a truly a blessing for us.
No, absolutely. And again, I have the stats here, and you hit the nail on the head at the beginning of this interview when you said no one's averaging. The highest is right now Marlene at 15, but after that, and like you mentioned, a lot of times at this point of the year, especially, you have a lot of teams that have a 20 point per game score at least. And I've always said the ones that are hard are like your team when there's 6 players here that are averaging over 10 points a game. Like, that's just hard to do, and that's hard to
Right.
and the credit goes to all the players to be able to have everybody be happy and cheer for everybody's success. I mean, it's just such fun to watch y'all play, and the chemistry you've talked about throughout this interview has been so evident all the way through every game that I've watched, whether it's on the home court, on the road, whatever it is. And y'all have been against some very tough teams. Obviously, you're 19-1, and we're going to talk about that team aspect now. Only loss being to Marion, and it wasn't even a bad loss because, I mean, that was a very close game all the way through. I made sure to watch that one live because I knew it was going to be a great test for both teams. And again, props to Marion for coming out on top. But I think the sport of basketball is one of the sports, very few. There's no ties. Unfortunately, 2 teams can play really great, but there's going to be an expiration date on that clock eventually. So someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. But you both played a very great game. Just talk to me about this season. What has been the biggest, and I don't know if it's version is the word or addition of this team, but what makes this team different? I mean, right now we're recording this, you're on a 10-game winning streak. You've got 2 conference games coming up this week on Wednesday and Saturday. What about this team is a little different from the previous 4 conference tournament champions that you've been able to coach and had the privilege of coaching? What is different about them? What makes this group a lot more just special in different ways? Not special that those other 4 were definitely special, but what makes this one special in their own way?
Well, I think one of the big thing, and we've kind of alluded to it, that they just don't care who has the big game. They're again they the chemistry, and we've had good chemistry the last 4 years. I don't want my past 4 year teams to think, well, we had chemistry, and we did. But this team this year has taken the chemistry, I think, to another level. And I think that, again, you can't go wrong with chemistry. You got to have people that love each other. And I'm an old farm boy, and that's kind of, we didn't throw that word love around very much in my youth growing up, but it's a huge term, and it's respect, and it's helping each other out, even if they're struggling in the classroom, or if they're struggling with relationships. They're truly a great teammate. And we've always had, as we'd mentioned, 1 or 2 big time scorers, but this team, we got 7 or 8, 9 kids on any given night. Kate Ball had 11 the other night, and she was a freshman that doesn't score a whole lot, but she's one of the Splash sisters. So, and the players that do more scoring, they were just as happy for her as they would have been for themselves. So teams could game plan for us, but when you have as deep as we are, again, to me, that's got to be some kind of a challenge. And the chemistry, I know I've said that word 100 times, but we believe in it, and we foster that. We do a lot of things in our community. We do a lot of things together. Over our Christmas break, we had to feed them, and we had tons of people open their doors, and churches that opened their doors, and we would go and have fellowship and do all kinds of things. And I think those kids kind of took that as a badge of courage. But it didn't take us long to see what we have, and I'm looking forward to more time with them. Hopefully we got more games. You just kind of made me realize, we're 19-1. We're 20 games into this season. We got 8 regular season games left. If we're fortunate to maybe win a conference tournament, that's 3 more. If we're fortunate to host the first round of the national tournament, which we've done that once before, that's 2. So that's another 2 games. And then if we get to the Sioux City Sweet 16, and then Final 8, Final 4, national championship, so we're looking, we still got quite a few games left, but time doesn't wait on anybody, and we just got to stay healthy. We got to stay together. And if we keep doing what we're doing, I'm excited for this team and the accomplishments that they have an opportunity to make.
No, absolutely. I got a few more questions here for you, Coach. these next two questions are going to be a little bit more, about you. I do want to give you your flowers and give you your appreciation for who you are and what you've been to the game in the NAIA world. You're, like I mentioned earlier, a second among active NAIA coaches in career wins. That's 717 at the time of this recording. What have you learned in your entire career that has allowed you to be successful this year? Obviously with such a illustrious career, you're going to have a lot of situations like this where you lose a big class, whether from a leadership standpoint, a number standpoint, sometimes both. And, I'm sure this isn't the first time that this happened, but what have you learned from those past experiences that allow you to, like you mentioned, retool and continue to retool year in and year out? Well, where have those experiences from the past have allowed you to do that for this year?
Well, there's a lot of good movies out there, and I quote a lot of lines from movies, and my kids sometimes, they start rolling their eyes. Oh, here we go again. But Coach Carter, and I'm sure hopefully you have seen that, when Coach Carter eliminated one of the players from the team due to rules and violations or whatever. And one of the current players said, "Well, Coach, there goes our leading scorer." And then, of course, Coach Carter said, "Well, then somebody else is going to have to step up." And that's kind of like what our mentality has been. When top scorers leave the program or somebody leaves the program, then we'll have two new leading ones, and somebody it's your turn. Step up, step up, step up, step up. The run ends and we rebuild, or we coach them up and make the run at number 5. If that's in our mind, we've won 4 in a row and we want to win that 5th one, because a lot of people have, this is the end of whatever you had going on here. Your time is up. You lost all of your starters. You got 4 returning. You're going to have to rebuild. And we took that with a grain of salt, and we knew that, but we also knew the program is here and it's going to continue. And maybe it's not, I'll be honest with you, at the beginning of this year, I felt really good about this team. I thought we're going to win. Would you have asked, if you'd asked me if you're 19-1 at one point, I'd like, well, I doubt if that's going to happen, but it did happen because of the kids, because of what they believe in, because of the staff and the ownership that's being taken. And it's been an unbelievable year. Of my 34 years here at Rio, this was the biggest rebuild. Again, it comes back to my staff. I trusted them, and they took ownership, and they made this happen. Everyone thought it was over but us. And as you don't coach, you don't go into every season, hey, we're going to do this. I went to a clinic many years ago down in Kentucky, and the clinician once said, "You can't win the Kentucky Derby with plow horses." And I'm an old farm boy, and I knew exactly what he was talking about. And we go out and we recruit and bring people in that's going to fit our mold, and then we work with them. It's our job. If we don't bring them up to the next level, that's on us. We got to look in that mirror, and we're just very fortunate. We hit pay dirt with every player that we brought in, the chemistry that they have created, and that's on their own. They've done most of that. Now we try to nurture that a little bit, but the credit goes to the players. The credit goes to the program. I think the credit goes to administration here at the University of Rio Grande, giving us resources to do what we're doing. And you'd mentioned, the wins are great, and whatever that number is, with a dollar, that you can go out and buy a pack of gum or something. To me, it's important because of the past and what it's created and what it is now. But what's so important right now is the moment, living in the moment, and doing what we're doing right now and finishing this thing off. Let's do our job and let's finish this thing off.
Absolutely. And the next question, I know is a little bit of a crazy one to ask, but I have to ask because I don't know the next time I'll be able to talk to somebody who's had this much winning under their belt. Is there one win out of the 717 that stands a little bit different? Not necessarily because it was a great game, or not necessarily because, it was a crazy ending, anything like that. But is there a game, is there a win that you've been a part of that you just remember a little bit more vividly than the other 716? Is there one that, I won't even say the word favorite, because I know you loved all of them. I know each one of them is special in their own way, but that one that the memory is a little bit more vivid for whatever reason, is there one like that?
Well, to be honest with you, there's two. And winning the first one, which just happened about 3 years ago, winning the home pod to go to the round of 16 was a really special moment. In the last several years, the NAIA has gone to where they have, I think it's 14 pods throughout the country, and then the winner of each of those pods meet at Sioux City. So that's the route that we do now. And we were fortunate. I think we were 30 wins and 2 losses, and we were high enough on the arc that we got to host one of those, and to win that at our place, to win those 2 games, to go to the final 16, to me was great, because what we do, we want to get, every coach wants to get to the national tournament. Then you want to win the national tournament. We've been there, I think, maybe 9 or 10 times. We have not won a national tournament, and making it to the Sweet 16 was the farthest that we'd ever been. And that happened a couple of years ago. The other moment, one of the most, greatest games to me, I've been blessed to be in a program with good players and great coaches for 34 years. We've had 2 losing seasons. The losing season that I'm referring to, we were 8-22, 8 wins and 22 losses. I thought I was going to lose my mind. The last game of that season, now that's back when I think we could play 30 game limits or 32 game limits. I can't remember. The last game of our season, we were playing a nationally ranked top 25 team. Actually, they were top 15 team at our place. Now, at that point, we were 7-22. And we had some great recruits coming in, and my coach at that time, Coach Bai, said, "You really want to bring those recruits in to play this nationally ranked team?" I said, "They need to see the good and the bad." That team, that 7-22 team, we beat that nationally ranked team because they probably took us slightly, and we ended up beating that team. And to me, there was no there was no parades. There was no, fireworks. There was no conference championship. There was no conference tournament championship. There was nothing. There was no rings bought or anything. That group of people played up, and we earned that win. And that was one of my, will be always in my mind. And I stay in touch with some of those kids because they felt they let me down, because that was one of 2 losing seasons that I had. But Coach Manny, I tell you what, there's more to winning the national championships or winning the conference championships. It's when you get a group of people together and they work hard and they hit a goal. That, to me, that was unbelievable.
No, absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that. That's one heck of a story. Like that's a story that I think a lot of coaches would agree with. And speaking from a young coach who does want to even get half of the success that you've already had, I can imagine those are the games that set up every other winning season that you had, every other championship that you've won, because in those moments you realize what it's about. In those moments you realize, I say it a lot of times, there's some games where, again, that nationally ranked team ended up having a better season, all that kind of stuff. But for 40 minutes on one evening, on one afternoon, anything could happen. This game of basketball we've seen some crazy things happen at all levels. We've been a part of crazy things, whether coaching, playing, but for 40 minutes, for 32 minutes, for however long it is that game is being played, anything can happen. And that's what we love about this game. That's what we love about the sport. So hearing that story just it's a great thing. I can only imagine, like you said, no celebrations, no tickets, no nothing, but just that locker room was probably one of the craziest locker rooms you've ever been a part of, and I can only imagine what that was like. Last 2 questions here for you, Coach. First, taking a bigger picture here, the River States Conference, I do believe it's one of the conferences that maybe doesn't get as much love, and one of the conferences that I really wanted to give a little bit more attention to, not just for the Rio Grande and the Shawnee States of the world, but for the IU East, for the Oakland City teams, those type of teams that have really been able to have good seasons. What should the people at home know about the River States Conference? What should they know about the conference that's going to have at least two, but I truly believe at least three or maybe even four teams going to the national tournament this year that have really good cases. Talk to them a little bit about what the conference is like, what the conference is about, what it represents, what is the best way to describe this River States Conference in the NAIA.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you, the River States Conference, it's a tough conference. Now, we are getting better and better every year. And I think what we're doing as a conference is starting to have ripple and wave effects out through the NAIA. And it's getting better every year, as I mentioned. What will make this league different now is that we're getting quality and stability of coaches in our league. And we've got a lot of new coaches. And, I'm the grandpa of the coaching of being in this league. And I love the newcomers and the youth of the coaches and it's coming in, or the integrity and the work of our coaches. So you got Coach C from Brescia. I mean, he is just he's just a hard-nosed type of coach that has his kids playing extremely hard. Coach Gorby at Midway, she's got. We beat them by 1 point early in the season, and we'll play them again. We play them Tuesday this week. Mother Nature's probably going to mess that up. It'd probably be Wednesday or Thursday. But they're Brescia's 5-2 in the league, 6-2 in the league, and 15-5 overall. Midway's 6-2 in the league and 15-5 overall. And then we have Shawnee. Coach Burrows down at Shawnee. They're 6-2 in the league and 15-5 overall. And we got to go to Shawnee and Midway towards in the next couple of weeks. So we have good teams and we have up and coming teams, and our coaches, I think, are starting to understand, how we signify ourselves, or who we play and when we play them, to help build their own programs up and continue to build and lift up the River States Conference. The River States Conference has quality institutions, quality leadership, quality basketball, and it's becoming a conference that people need to take seriously, especially coming March. I believe it's my goal. I'm the Arc Raider that, we should get, and I'm hoping, I'm knocking on wood, Rio Grande, Shawnee, I think Brescia and Midway, I think we all have a place in the top 64 for this year, and that's our goal. And I it would be so cool if that happens, that we can get all four of us in.
No, absolutely. And you talk about that Midway game, that's a game that I definitely remember. I definitely watched the ending of that one. And for the people at home who didn't know, that was only also a 1 point game at your place. So again, like you mentioned, you got to go to Midway. That's going to be a great game. And like I said, you get the two auto bids from the River States being a 10-team conference. So you're going to have two guaranteed. But I do believe 3 and 4 is not the craziest thing to think about. I think when you have a Raider like yourself that's going to be fighting for everybody out there, I do believe you have a really good chance. And those are the two of the teams that I was kind of hinting at, of saying, hey, these teams have a case. And especially because the River States is not afraid to go play other conferences.
Correct.
You've played a few teams even from down in our neck of the woods in the sun. I've seen Brescia play some teams from the Mid-South. I've seen teams play other conferences. It does help with the information, the ARC, the RPI, all that kind of stuff. But at its core, you want to do that to be able to compete with the best. Again, you want to be able to understand the Mid-South, one of the best conferences in the country. There are red banner teams in that country. Shawnee State played Southeastern earlier this year, again, in our neck of the woods, and those are the games you want to be tested in. So I'm, again, got to give credit to River State. They've done a great job. We've played a few teams. Last year we played Oakland City before they had their new coach, obviously, but they were a great game. It was a great test all the way through. So I've seen it up close and personal, and that they were y'all were one of the conferences that I definitely had in my mind. I want to make sure the River State gets a little bit more love, because now when we get to March, No one's talking about, oh, this team came out of nowhere. No, we've talked about this team all year. Y'all just weren't paying attention, but y'all gonna pay attention to it now. Last question for you here, Coach. We talked a little bit about it there. You're on your way to possibly, number 5 in a row. Knock on wood. I'm rooting for you. It'll be a great thing, and obviously a historic monument, a historic moment. But I want to know, was winning the first one harder, or when it's all said and done, and it does happen, again, let's talk about it as if it's going to happen. Do you think that trying to win number 5 is harder than winning that first one? And in that same breath, how have you been able to keep the ladies from being bored about winning? Obviously, yes, it's a new team this year, but how do they continue to want more? How do you instill, even in the new girls, hey, you haven't been a part of a lot of this winning, but that doesn't mean that we don't expect it from you as well. Just talk to me a little bit about that first one compared to the possible 5th one, and then not being bored with winning and staying hungry, not being satisfied throughout this, again, now half-decade run of great success.
Well, some of the things we do, we want the players to come up with goals, every year. And every year it's different. We come up with academic goals. We come up with playing goals, those types of things. And first of all, they buy into it from the beginning. They want to see another banner hanging up in the gym. They want to be a part of that. The first conference championship will always be special. It's always, 4 years ago. I've had them before, but starting this era, that first one was really special. At that time, we were called the KIAC, the Kentucky Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. That was in 2014-15. That was our first year in the league after we left the Mid-South. We were in the Mid-South for 5 or 6 years. We had a good core of players, but early in December, we dismissed 2 of the starters. And at that time, I honestly wasn't sure if I was making the right decision for the team, but I just felt we had to do what I felt was best in the best interest of the team and the rest of the players, and it turned out to be a good move. We lost 4 of our next 8 games, including our first conference game. And after that loss, something kind of clicked. And that's, again, if you work at it, if you communicate and you talk about it and don't alienate people from the goal, and if everybody's on the same page, then good things will happen. And our chemistry started coming together at that point. And we went on to win the rest of our games, and we won the KIC that year. And that was tough. That was a special one. And then winning 4 out of the 5 in a row is even tougher. Every year you can't slip up. We've got a target sign up over the top of our locker room when you go in it, and some of the new kids say, well, what's that? Well, that's the target that's on our back. That's the target that not only other teams, but doubting Thomases, people that, think, well, it's just kind of a fluke. That's our target, and that's our mental restart to think, if you think you're working hard, you need to maybe think again. If you think you've done enough reps, you maybe need to think again. And so we get everybody's best shot. And when we, you get everybody's best shot. And when we beat a last place team by 6 points, sometimes I don't like it, but that kind of hurts your standing a little bit, even though you won, but maybe you should have beaten the team more than that. It's not because we didn't play well. It's because that team played its best game against us. And we get that a lot. We get teams that maybe don't have a shot or a chance at making the conference tournament or winning the conference, but we get their best shot on that particular night because they want to knock us off because they think we're bad people because we've been on top so long. And that's okay, but we're there because we work hard and we set those goals, and we wouldn't have it any other way. And both were hard. Every championship has its own story. I'm just grateful that we had a part of them. And I'm grateful that we are having another opportunity to make a little bit of history. I mean, you look at it, it's all, if we happen to be fortunate enough to win this conference this year or the conference tournament this year, that's a half of a decade. That's 5 straight years of, a lot of positives. And right now we're 114 going into this year, 114 wins and 19 losses, and then you add 19 and 1 or whatever we are now. That's not bad. So players stay locked in. Our fans, I think we have the best fan base maybe in the country. We play when we have our conference tournament, and our league, if you're the higher seed, you get a host, and we'll have 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 people just coming to watch women's basketball. Now, that's done because of who we are and the servant leadership that this program puts forth in this community, but it's also the community reaching back to us, and they just love coming. And it's amazing. Some kids, some little girls will come up and we'll give them a team poster, and they'll have some of the players sign them. We had a young lady or young kid had a pair of the Grinches, Kobe Bryant Grinches, and those are like $400 or $500 shoes, and they wanted Ella Skeens to sign their shoe. So that, to me, that's like Never Land. That's like in the movies or whatever. So to do what we're doing, I'm just blown away, and I'm really kind of like pinching myself. And and most coaches, you don't get to enjoy the season or the seasons until maybe when it's all said and done down the road. But these players, the players that I've had all along, have just been tremendous people. They stay in touch with me 15, 20, 30 years ago. They have said that I'm getting kind of soft because I'm not as tough on this group as I was on their group 15 or 30 years ago. And I get a big chuckle out of that, and they're probably right. But to do what we're doing, and to have, Coach Manny, people like you, and to just keep these stories going and talk about the NAIA and talk about the River States Conference, and to talk about the Midways and the Shawnee States and the Brescias and the Rio Grandes, and on any given year, it could be any number of teams in our league that's hopefully will be knocking on that door that we're knocking on. We appreciate who you are and what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to maybe if things work out, maybe we'll have another one of these things if we're fortunate to cut the net down from a national championship.
No, absolutely, and hopefully the next one will be in person. Talking about that fan base, again, I've watched a few games on the live stream, obviously. I can feel it. I remember that first game against Shawnee at Rio Grande. I said, that gym looks packed. It looks crazy. It looks energetic. Obviously, it was a great game between yourself and the Bears, but I've seen it. I've seen it a few times against some of the Spring Arbors of the world. Obviously, you all hosted, I believe, like kind of a classic that was done this year that brought out some great teams, and I saw it there. So that crowd out there in Rio Grande really does do what you have mentioned, and I've seen it firsthand. And Coach, like I said, I appreciate this. For those who don't know, and I'll be transparent, this was super last minute on my part, not on Coach's part. He actually saved me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll say it. I'll say it on there because I've apologized about 5 times already to him, to Coach Baez. I've apologized to them both together. I definitely, again, I appreciate this more than you probably know. And it's funny to think, you're talking about quotes and whatnot. Your team, I think, can be summed up in Geno Smith, a national football player, a few years back when he said they wrote you guys off, but y'all didn't write back. And that's clearly what the best message I can give to this Rio Grande team. If you guys haven't been following them, if you've been kind of just checking in and out, please understand they are not top 10 in the country for a reason. They are going to be a national tournament team. They have a chance to do something historic this year in the River States. Do not write them off, because they ain't going to write back, and y'all going to be really upset about that. But, Coach, again, I appreciate the time. Everybody at home, thank you all for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.